Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you that the world we live in is a dangerous place. But take heart, at least you don't live in Zephyri, where seven races of people have been exiled from their once thriving planets. Once their once thriving planets are destroyed, it's a recipe for betrayal, treachery, and ultimately hope. Now, the creator of this world of fantasy and adventure is Damien Doyle, and he spins this tale in his upcoming novel, Last Lineage. Welcome, Damien. Glad to have you
Hi,
with us.
how you doing?
Good. Now, did that brief description I gave there do your work justice, or was it just an awful
Yeah,
synopsis?
that sums it up. It sums it
Yeah.
up.
Well, without giving too much away, tell us about what readers are in for when they're picking up Last Lineage.
So, it's my first book, and as an avid reader, um, I know what I like to look
Hmm.
for. So I actually like to start the book off right in the action, fast pace, and just keep it moving with little downtime in it. I've it's going to be a seven series novels. And I've gotten pretty much the first four already worked out.
And this is the first one, right?
Yes, this will be the first one.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's an epic fantasy. There's magic based system. Um, it actually comes from a lot of metaphysical, like my metaphysical experience. Over the years, with like shamanism and mediumship and things like that, and it's like a healing journey of I don't participate in any of those kinds of things anymore, but a lot of it's centered around my experience and my learnings from
Mhm.
that. And the main characters are twins, and actually the girl is more of the takes the stage, and it's Damara, which actually is my daughter who was just born a few days ago.
Yes, congratulations, by the way.
Thank
Five
you.
days old. That's amazing.
Which is me and my partner, it's our combined names, and Damien and Sarah.
Oh, well, there you go. Very
And
clever.
she like, I was never really intended on being a writer. I do have a lot of creative endeavors. I like making music, and I like drawing, getting into animation, things like that. And she's kind of the muse to get me started and really pushing me to write. And it's been about a 2 year process, and I'm very critical of it. So I hope people enjoy it.
Well, I'm sure they will.
I believe it's like many other things in my life. I take a little bit of something and then don't bother with the rest and try to fill the gaps in myself. So I think it might be a different perspective, than traditional, since I didn't go to, I'm not an educated writer, but I read a lot and I am educated, but just not specifically, and that kind of thing. Um, and it's been a big learning curve, going through the editing processes and stuff like that. And actually my first editor happened to be like a Cambridge, um he was a Cambridge student. He was a professor for writing and all that stuff, so he actually like took the time to really, from the UK, to really mold the story and give me so many pointers and things like that.
Was that intimidating?
I just take things for what they are. I'd rather, I just take it as it is, and whatever advice,
Hmm.
I take what I get from it, and I try to, learn and expand on it. Then rather, everything's pretty much daunting at first. I'm in a 20-year career that's now I own my own business doing, and the first day in the field was like, oh my god, there's just so much, and then eventually you become,
Well,
very an expert at it. Yeah. So
well, you have a background in telecommunications. Is that what you're doing now? And has it helped you being in that world? Does it help you in
yeah,
this fantasy world?
I started off in telecommunications. That's installing physical networks, data networks, and I actually got to travel the world through most of my 20s. So
Hmm.
that's that. I mean, in my early 20s, I mean, the first country I went to was Indonesia. Big eye opener to the world.
Yeah.
Gave me a huge perspective of the world. It's actually very humbling, when you go somewhere that they don't even have hot water,
Uh-huh. I
or
know.
things
Yeah. And
like that. And that it was very humbling, and then I continued to do that for most of my 20s, so
have,
that gave me a lot of world experience.
were you always an avid reader of science fiction or fantasy?
Yeah, I like the fantasy. I actually uh I would prefer more like Donnie Brasco or something like that. Like, like a biopic pretty much of someone's life, like more realism and things. And I got into fantasy later, and I would read I actually, it's funny enough, I'd always read a lot of like government documents. I've
That can be
always
kind
been
of a
like
fantasy too.
well, just like I've always been someone who questions everything,
Hmm.
So even since the age of 15, I've always been. I actually graduated high school 2 years early because I found a loophole in the system for reading a government document.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I've always been more centered towards that, like conspiratorial kind of thing, and always want to find out answers for myself. Um, and actually that's what led me into reading fantasy. I was like, I kind of want to just um read something that's imaginative and not real and not so just daunting and sad than
Yeah,
the
right.
reality of any
Government documents, you know.
bad things that could be going on in the world. So that's what led me into it. um
Well, but now you say you've structured the first four already. You've got them in
yeah.
your head or what? How do you do that? Because I mean, I can see for myself writing short stories or writing
Mhm.
nonfiction, but writing a novel, that's a daunting task.
It
And
is.
you've got one done, but you've got three more in the works and more beyond that. How do you structure that? How do you keep that all straight, or do you put it on a board, or how do you do that?
Oddly enough, in my career, before I started my own company, I was a director, and I would be very schedule oriented, Excel spreadsheets,
Hmm.
just details down to anything. And you know what? I don't do any of that in my creative process
Really? See,
at
I would think it would
all.
be just the opposite.
Right. I just don't. Yeah, actually, I work backwards. I work backwards in it. I'm like, oh, I made up this thing and this, in the book, and this kind of like magic system and this, that, and the other, and this name and this explanation. And I have to go backwards and
Mhm.
put it together. But mainly, I speak it out loud. That tends to be the best thing. And I just give myself some moments, whether driving or something like that. And I like to take my time,
Mhm.
especially with like the second one. I actually feel more confident. I feel like it's better than the first one. It expands on it. Um, and I think that'll probably just come, with each one. But I uh I just call it spitballing.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of the ideas come to me, and it's very related through my experiences. And it, like I said, I'll just start talking, and the thoughts will come to me. It'll just start rolling, as opposed to writing. Writing it down is I'm more focused on how to write it. So I'm
Mhm.
not really thinking of a lot of the ideas. It's really just talking it out. And that actually applies to my memory so much better too, because especially with the second book, there's a good amount of characters. It's third person perspective. So and as I go further, I'm taking some of the characters that were previously introduced and actually bringing out them individually and having their own perspectives, and everyone has an arc, and it all has to tie together in the end.
Yeah,
So
that
as
would be
it
cool.
goes further, it's like I have the broad scope of it laid
Mhm.
out, but digging down into the details, that takes the process. It's difficult, but I have a lot of like eureka moments, like, man, what am I going to do with this? Or I already went here with this, so how am I going to? Because I
Yeah.
want you want to engage the reader as, like I like to be engaged, like, when a character is like, you think something's going to happen and then it's a tragedy, like, oh, how are they going to get out of this? I like,
Yeah.
so I'm in a um very much based on, if this happens, then the effect is this. And that's what I want to carry the story. Like, it's just one thing after another. This thing happens that, you think it's heading one way. And I already have the ending of the story, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
biggest part of it.
Yeah. Well, if you have the ending already, if you're working backwards, you kind of get around some of those obstacles that way because you
Yeah.
already know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I want it to be, a bit complex, but not too overly complex. But I like to do the character development is it's really the biggest part of it, is just getting to know the characters and watching them grow as individuals
Hmm.
and watching them so it's like a healing journey. Like it asks tough questions, like um how could you find unconditional love for something in situations that it just seems impossible? Like one with the creator. I'm not a religious person or trying to go like into religion or anything like that, but it is kind of like finding your peace with your maker and trying to be uh I guess, for lack of a better term, more Christ-like,
Hmm.
just finding, because even I even take perspectives of some of the villains in the book as well.
Yeah.
And it's not all about, we have to defeat this, or this person has to, be vanquished or something. It's actually, we all start somewhere, and some people's beginnings are kind of traumatic and tragic and might lead them, for whatever reason, to end up here. So a lot of the background story, you'll get a lot of background story from a
Hmm.
lot of these characters, and they're a little bit more complex because it's not so cut and dry, like, oh, they're just bad and they're trying to do
Right.
this. It actually, like, you can kind of relate to even the worst character in the book, and that's
Mhm.
why I give them space to have their perspective as well.
Oh, exactly. That's perfect to do the perspective of the quote bad guy because even bad guys think they're doing the right thing. I mean,
Mhm.
they don't think they're being bad, and I'm sure this work is more than just a battle between light and darkness. What would you say to people who want to pick up this book and read it? What would you say the overall theme is of the last lineage?
Um, I say it's your path to, like, enlightenment. It is a path to the one source creator. I call it source creator in the book. In metaphysical communities, they don't say God too much. They say the source of all the energy. So it's the source of life itself. And the source of life itself is it's just nothing but unconditional love. And so it's the journey from basically the darkness to how can we get here. But we have seven races, and there was individuals picked out of these seven races who are kind of responsible with the power of their old planets, because their old planets were destroyed. They brought into a parallel universe, and they all have to co-mingle and they have to unite together,
Mhm.
but they don't want to unite together. So there has to be some kind of heroes and a mechanism with magic and stuff that opens up the veil, opens up people's eyes to clearly draw the lines between what is light and what is dark, and you can make your own decision. It's all about free will. And the book also goes into many other realms besides Zephyri, which I would call the physical realm. Like our Earth, it expands further, and then it expands into other, let's say, like angelic beings, and their troubles and their strifes, and it goes even further than that. So it's like there's a lot packed into it, but but once I get to the end of the seventh book, it'll be simplified. you know
Okay.
right.
Well, it must be nice to, there's a certain amount of freedom that comes with writing stories like that because you can make up whatever you
Right.
want it to be. You're not restricted to the reality of Earth. If you want them to live on chicken soup instead of oxygen, you can do
Right.
that. It's totally up to you. Who are the writers that most inspired you?
I would say what I've gotten to recently, Brandon Sanderson. Of course, he's like, you know, the goat to everybody. He's got such an expansive library. Tolkien, and I'm exploring new readers. I like maybe if it's really good, I'll finish a series, but I like to just go from reader to reader and kind of sample. I just finished a Joe Abercrombie. I just finished his book, the Devils, and I really liked it. And I pick up things from every author, just like some their perspective, their styles. I just finished the Red Rising series. That was really good. That's really popular out now. The Dungeon Crawler Carl, I love that with Matt Dinniman. Can't wait till that. That's actually um 8 books right there, seven, the eighth one coming out. Like I had to read all seven. That's one of the things I could not put down. And that's a totally different style than what I'm going for. But these authors, they're just very engaging and like Brandon Sanderson, what I've he's he teaches a lot online. What I've learned from him is yeah, there is an imagination and there is this epic world, but you can't be too like willy-nilly with everything. Like people like having like the magic system explained in detail and very well. And
Mhm.
like you can't just do anything that you want at any time. There has to be, so I think about this, there has to be a lot of limitations and they
Okay,
have to
yeah,
be explained throughout the book too. Then that kind of keeps you, as far as I'm concerned, engaged.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
There's
you
got to
have
be
to
some
some
got to be some consistency there.
Right. You have to overcome something. There has to be things, trials and constant obstacles to overcome and twists and turns. Definitely. Like that's the hardest part about writing it, especially when you kind of write yourself into a hole like, okay, I had this great idea and I've written it out. Now, how am I going to engage the reader to like either not figure out something so
Mhm.
soon
Right.
or it be something that looks so plainly obvious and then it's not.
A twist. Oh yeah, boy,
Yeah,
that takes real talent to do that. I commend you, and I'm sure that your book will be a real page turner as well, just like the ones you've been reading. It's coming out in November. I imagine some of the people watching this will be seeing this well past November. So if you're watching during the holidays, now would be a good time to get to Amazon, check it out. It's called Last Lineage. Damian Doyle, thanks for joining us today. It's a pleasure talking with you. Good luck with good.
same.
You got 6 more books to do after this, so better
Right.
get to work. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. You bet. And thank you, folks, for spending a few minutes with us on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden. We'll see you next time.